Is this much work to install this tiny little part actually worth it? We're going to find out today.
When we decide to go to bigger tires in our off-road rigs, it not only strains the steering system, but it also makes it a lot harder to steer the vehicle. So we've got a couple of options that we can do to help alleviate some of that strain.
The inner fender liners make that a little bit easier.
One option is going to be full hydraulic steering. This consists of a hydraulic ram and an orbital valve, basically that's just pumping hydraulic fluid through to get the ram to actuate. Full hydro steering is not legal in most states. They don't allow steering if you do not have a mechanical link in the steering system to hold everything together. So it's not going to be an option for people that are wanting to drive down the road in most states. Not necessarily all states, though. Another option is going to be hydraulic assist steering. So this is also going to have a hydraulic ram, but it's still going to use your stock steering gearbox. It's still going to keep your tie rod and drag link, and basically it's doing just what the name says. It's assisting what's there. So it's adding a little bit more power to the system from the force of that ram itself. You're going to still use your stock steering box that's been modified. You'll probably use a modified steering pump. Your steering column is going to still be attached. So everything is still going to be attached. Everything's still going to be mechanically attached. But again, it gives you that added assist, that added extra boost there. The last option is going to be modifying your stock steering pump, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm using the Apex Steering Boost Kit, and that's going to give me a little bit better performance than stock without having to go crazy with like Hydro Assist or full hydro. When you're trying to get more out of your stock power steering pump, you're going to be messing with one of two things, possibly both of them. But you're either going to be increasing the pressure or you're going to be increasing the volume. So in this one, we're going to be messing with a stiffer spring, and then they also give you this little piece here. You can actually preload that spring, so you can add more pressure to it. So this one, we're just boosting the pressure on it. And to do that, you just back out this little fitting here. And inside is going to be the stock spring, as well as a couple other little pieces. And when you're taking this thing out, sometimes you want to be careful because sometimes there's enough pressure on that spring that can actually push it out and shoot it across the room. And that's not good. So just kind of be careful when you're doing it. This one doesn't have much pressure on it. So there's a little plug. And if use a magnet, if you have a magnet, make sure you don't have metal shavings on it. Being in the garage, fabbing, it's always a possibility. But so let's see. So there is the stock spring. And then there's also this little needle valve. This piece gets reused. Make sure you don't lose this piece, because if you do, you're basically buying a new pump, which it's not cheap. So again, there's our stock spring. There's the spring that comes with the Apex kit. So you can see, if I can hold these well, you can see the stock spring is actually shorter than the Apex spring. But if you look at the size of the coil windings, you can see this one has bigger coil windings, so it's going to be a little bit stiffer, never mind the fact that there's more windings to it. So, I mean, you can feel just squeezing on them. It's definitely a stiffer spring. So, putting it back together, you're going to put that little needle valve thing in there. It's going to sit into the spring, and then that's going to sit into their new little preload piece there, and it all goes back in. So just a little dab of lightweight grease on bottom of the spring to hold it in. Yep. And a little bit of grease on that little valve to hold it to the spring. That's done. And then start putting that back together. So you can see a little bit of grease on both of those holds them in place. It's not going to fall out when you go to put them in there. That's always a good thing. Now it's time to throw that thing back in. When you do, Make sure to throw a little bit of fresh, clean power steering fluid on that O-ring. That way it doesn't get snagged, get messed up. You can throw a little bit of lube on the threads. That way it goes in nice and smooth. And then slap it back together.
Now, anytime that you increase the pressure in a power steering system or the flow through the power steering system, you're basically sending that fluid through the system quicker, which means that there's a little bit more friction, which means it's going to heat up, but because it's moving quicker, it's also not going to slow enough to cool. So when you do that, you want to make sure that you're at least adding volume to the system, but even better still, you want to cool it. So what I always like to do is add a cooler into the system, which is going to do both things. This one is a aluminum heatsink style of cooler, so it's going to allow the fluid in the cooler to cool off just a little bit, but it's also adding more volume to the system so that it just doesn't generate near the heat as it would otherwise.
Next up, time to put in the nipples onto the cooler. And same thing, you want to get a little bit of oil on the threads and definitely oil on that O-ring. That way the O-ring's gonna seat real well in there and not twist or pinch. And you take these little T-slot pieces, they slide into the track on the back of the cooler. The L brackets with the short screws. And you're just going finger tightening now because we'll get the placement when you slap it on the Jeep.
With a cooler, a lot of times you're kind of stuck with the areas that you can actually fit the cooler. This one fits all right in this section. It comes with a kit, so it goes in there pretty well. But personally, I prefer to run a cooler that's 2 to 3 times the size of this one. Honestly, I'm probably going to be thinking about it in the future of adding a bigger cooler. Just again, I'll be able to add a bunch more fluid to the system, but I'm going to be able to cool that fluid that's running through the system as well, which is just going to make everything work a whole lot better. Think about it like an automatic transmission. The fluid needs to be warmed up, but if it overheats, then the system's just going to fail. Same thing's going to happen in your power steering system as well. If you get too hot of fluid in there, you're just going to start trashing parts.
I'm adding some of that braided loom on there just to give it a chance against anything that it might rub against.
Next, you have to set the pressure in the system. We're looking for 2,000 psi when you've got the steering wheel at full lock or you've got it pushed up against an obstacle. Now that we've got the new parts installed and dialed in, it's time to start the long process of getting everything put back to normal.
So after getting everything put back together, getting the power steering system all bled out, a little bit extra fluid added to the system there, jumped on the road, headed up the hill just to see how everything handled. Now on the road, I didn't feel any difference whatsoever, which is exactly what I was expecting. You're only really going to see the extra boost out of this system when you've got a load on the steering. So if you're, bound up just a little bit, something that the tire is pressing up against a rock or something like that, then you'll get that little bit extra boost. Other than that, drove absolutely fine down the road, dirt trails, no problem whatsoever. I was able to take it up the hill after getting a slightly larger tire put on there. Everything still works great. The steering's still nice, got a good feedback, good feel to it, but I did have that little extra boost with the bigger tire. Bigger tire, aired down, bigger contact patch, so it's gonna have more friction, more resistance to it. but with that steering boost kit, it drove just fine. Didn't really get bound up in the rocks or anything like that, so it worked out really nice. Now, one thing that you do have to pay attention when doing something like this is, with this system, you're boosting the power steering pump. You're adding more power to the power steering pump and into the box. However, you're not adding any more strength to that box. If you do hydro assist, you're adding in that steering ram. That steering ram is going to take roughly 50% of the load off of the box. So if you've got your vehicle pushed up against a rock and you go to turn the vehicle, that ram is going to help push on the knuckle and push on against that rock basically. With just boosting up the power steering system but not adding that ram, you're adding more pressure to the pitman arm, to the tie rod, to the drag link, and then out to the knuckle. So basically that whole system is going to see all that added strain to it, versus again with a hydro assist system, you're just going to add that added stress just basically at the knuckle, which the knuckles can usually take that. Some of those other parts, not always. I have seen pitman arms break. I have seen tie rods, drag links, if it's the factory stuff, I've seen that stuff get messed up from just adding more pressure to the system. So you do have to pay attention to that. Other than that, the kit does exactly what it's supposed to. Got a little bit more boost, drive down the road no problem. Everything's working great as far as I'm concerned. So let me know, what do you guys think? Do you like full hydro? You like assist? You like just boosting that stock system? Or just leave it alone and run down the road? Drop a comment below, let me know. Don't forget to like the channel. Other than that, we'll catch you guys out there on the next one.